I am sitting in my home office right now, staring at an old photograph of my family's cafe. I can still smell the fresh coffee, hear the espresso machine humming, feel the wooden counter beneath my fingertips. As a teenager, I believed that place would always be my home, my future, my legacy. But everything changed one summer evening when I was 18 years old. That night I learned that family love sometimes comes with invisible price tags. Before I share what happened, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. What happened next taught me that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who see you as nothing more than free labor. Let me take you back to where it all began. My family owned a small place called Morning Glory Cafe in a quiet town in Ohio. It was nothing fancy, just a corner spot, with checkered tablecloths, the smell of bacon in the morning, and regulars who came in every single day for their usual orders. My father Frank is 62 years old now, but back then he was a stubborn man in his late 40s who believed that hard work mattered more than any diploma. My mother Diane was the kind of woman who never disagreed with her husband, not once in all the years I watched them together. She avoided conflict like it was a disease, always nodding along, always keeping the peace. Then there was my younger sister Megan. She is 4 years younger than me, and from the very beginning, our parents treated us like we came from different worlds. I started working at the cafe when I was 12 years old. At first, it was simple things, bussing tables, wiping down counters, washing dishes in the back, until my hands turned pruny. By the time I was 15, I was pulling full shifts every weekend and all summer long. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, drag myself to the cafe before the sun came up, and work until my legs ached and my eyes burned. I missed school dances because I had to cover the Saturday night rush. I watched my friends head off to the movies while I stayed behind refilling coffee cups and mopping floors. And the strangest part, I never got paid. Not a single dollar. My parents told me I was contributing to the family, that this was what being part of something bigger meant. I believed them. I thought this was normal. I thought I was building something alongside them, brick by brick, cup by cup. But I also had dreams beyond those cafe walls. Despite working those brutal hours, I managed to keep my grades up. My teachers noticed. They pulled me aside, told me I had potential, encouraged me to apply to colleges. I started imagining a future where I could study business management, learn the skills to maybe expand the family cafe into something even greater. I wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to take what they built and grow it into an empire. I saved every tip I could. Whenever a customer left a few extra dollars on the table, I would slip those bills into a shoebox I kept hidden under my bed. After 6 years of saving, I had $2,300. It was not much, but it felt like a fortune to me. I applied to Ohio State University and got accepted with a partial scholarship. My heart nearly exploded when I read that acceptance letter. But even with the scholarship, I still needed about $15,000 per year for tuition and living expenses. I figured my parents would help. After all, I had given them 6 years of free labor. Surely that counted for something. I approached them on a Tuesday evening in my senior year of high school. The cafe had just closed, and we were sitting at one of the corner tables, the same table where I had eaten thousands of meals. I held the acceptance letter in my trembling hands and laid out the financial breakdown. I showed them the numbers, explained the scholarship, told them how much I still needed. My father laughed. Not a warm laugh, not a supportive chuckle, a dismissive, almost mocking sound that made my stomach drop. He said college was a waste of money, that I already had a job waiting for me right here. He gestured around at the cafe like it was a kingdom he was graciously offering me. My mother said nothing. She just stared at the floor, her hands folded in her lap. I tried to argue. I pointed out that I had worked for 6 years without pay. I asked if that labor was worth anything, if maybe they had set aside something for me the way other parents did for their children. My father's face turned red. He slammed his palm on the table and told me that I had lived under their roof, eaten their food, slept in their bed. That work was my rent, he said. I was not owed anything. I brought up Megan. She never worked a single shift at the cafe. She got an allowance every week, new clothes, every season, dance lessons that cost more per month than I had ever saved in a year. My father cut me off before I could finish. Megan is different, he said. She has potential for other things. You are good with your hands. Stay and work. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, but her words cut deeper than my father's anger. Listen to your father, Lynn. Family comes first. In that moment, I understood something I had been too blind to see for 18 years. I was never their son with dreams and ambitions. I was free labor. I was the one they could use while they saved their love and their money for someone else. 2 weeks after that conversation, I made my decision. I packed one suitcase with everything that mattered to me. A few changes of clothes, some books, the shoebox with my savings, and that acceptance letter from Ohio State. I left a note on the kitchen counter. It said, I am going to build my own life. I hope one day you will understand. I took a Greyhound bus to Columbus. The ride was long and quiet, and I spent most of it staring out the window watching the Ohio farmland roll by, wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. When I arrived, I had no connections, no safety net, nothing but $2,300 and a stubborn refusal to give up. My first night was in a cheap motel near the bus station. The walls were thin, the mattress was lumpy, and I could hear sirens in the distance. I lay there staring at the water-stained ceiling, feeling more terrified than I had ever felt before. But underneath that fear, there was something else. A strange sense of freedom, like I had finally cut a rope that had been wrapped around my neck for years. I called home once from a payphone outside a gas station. My mother answered. Her voice was cold, distant. She told me my father said I should not come back until I apologized. I hung up without saying goodbye. That was the moment I realized I was truly alone. I deferred my college enrollment for 1 year. I needed to work to save to figure out how to survive on my own. I took 3 jobs at the same time. Mornings I loaded boxes at a warehouse on the edge of the city. My shift started at 4:30 a.m. and ended at noon. Afternoons I worked at a grocery store stocking shelves and helping customers find items. Weekend nights I bussed tables at a restaurant downtown, the same kind of work I had done for free at my parents' cafe, except now I actually got paid. I rented a tiny studio apartment with a guy named Derek. He was a community college student with big dreams and a kind heart. We split everything down the middle, from rent to groceries to the single bar of soap we kept in the bathroom. Derek became my first real friend. He taught me things I never knew, like how to apply for financial aid, how to search for scholarships, how to navigate the confusing world of higher education that my parents had never prepared me for. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I wrote essays about my background, about growing up working in a cafe, about the hunger I felt for something more. I poured my heart onto those pages, and slowly the responses started coming back. I won a need-based grant. Then 2 small scholarships from local organizations. It was not enough to cover everything, but it was enough to get started. I finally enrolled at Ohio State at 19 years old. I worked 25 hours per week while carrying a full course load. I slept 4 to 5 hours per night, survived on ramen noodles and instant coffee, and pushed myself harder than I ever thought possible. My first semester was brutal. My grades slipped and I almost lost one of my scholarships. I remember one night in the campus library, after failing a midterm exam, I locked myself in a bathroom stall and cried until I could not breathe. That is where Harold found me. He was a janitor at the university, 67 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes. He knocked on the stall door and asked if I was okay. I do not know why, but I opened the door and told him everything. He listened without interrupting, then he said something I have never forgotten. The world does not owe you anything, but you do not owe the world your surrender either. Those words became my mantra. I carried them with me through every sleepless night and every impossible exam. Over the next 4 years, I had almost no contact with my family. I sent Christmas cards every December writing brief updates about my life. I never received anything back. Not a card, not a call, not even a text message. I learned through distant relatives that Megan got a brand new car for her 16th birthday. I heard that my parents had been saving money for her college fund, $30,000 set aside just for her. When she graduated high school, she chose a private university in California, and my parents paid her full tuition without hesitation. Megan never worked a day in her life. She posted vacation photos on social media, pictures of beaches and restaurants and shopping trips, while I was eating ramen in my tiny apartment and studying until my vision blurred. I watched from a distance, and I will admit that it hurt. But there was also a strange relief in that pain. Their favoritism confirmed what I had always suspected. I made the right choice by leaving. I graduated with a degree in business management. My grade point average was 3.7. I earned magna cum laude honors. On graduation day, I looked out at the crowd and saw no familiar faces from my childhood. My parents were not there. My sister was not there. But Derek was in the third row cheering louder than anyone. Harold had passed away the year before, but I felt his presence with me. 2 of my professors, the ones who had believed in me when I did not believe in myself, shook my hand and told me they were proud. I cried that day. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pride, of relief, of finally proving that I was worth something. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a marketing firm in Columbus. It was not glamorous. I started in a cubicle answering phones and organizing files, but I worked harder than anyone else in that office. I stayed late, arrived early, volunteered for projects no one else wanted. Over 8 years, I climbed the ladder one rung at a time. By the time I turned 32, I was a senior marketing director. My salary was $175,000 per year. I owned a 3-bedroom house in a nice suburb with a backyard and a garage. I had savings accounts, investment portfolios, a retirement fund that grew every month. I drove a modest Honda Accord because I had learned the value of money the hard way, and I never wanted to forget those lessons. I also had love. Her name was Samantha, and she was a pediatric nurse with a laugh that could light up any room. We had been together for 3 years, and she knew pieces of my story, but not all of it. I had kept so much buried for so long that even I sometimes forgot the weight I was carrying. I had not spoken to my parents in over 10 years. Sometimes late at night I would think about reaching out. I would pick up my phone scroll to the number I still had saved and wonder if things had changed. But then I would remember their words, their choices, the way they looked at me, like I was nothing more than a tool to be used. And I would put the phone down. 2 years ago, Megan sent me a friend request on Facebook. I stared at it for a long time, my cursor hovering over the accept button. In the end, I clicked ignore. I was not ready. Maybe I never would be. Then came a Thursday evening in October that changed everything. Samantha and I were in the kitchen cooking dinner together laughing about something silly that had happened at her work. My phone rang. The screen showed an unknown number from Ohio. Something in my gut told me to answer. The voice on the other end was my mother. I had not heard her speak in over a decade, but I recognized her immediately. She sounded older, tired, like the years had worn her down. But her tone was not apologetic. There was no warmth, no acknowledgement of the time that had passed. She got straight to the point. Megan was getting married in June. The groom came from a wealthy family, and the wedding needed to be appropriate to match their status. The venue was a historic mansion outside Cleveland. The guest list had 250 names. The total budget was $185,000. My parents could contribute $50,000 from their savings. They needed me to provide the remaining $135,000. I was stunned. I stood there in my kitchen phone, pressed to my ear, unable to form words. My mother continued. She said this was my chance to be part of the family again. Megan wanted her brother at the wedding, but they needed my contribution to make it happen. I finally found my voice. Let me understand this correctly. You want me to pay $135,000 for a wedding, and that is my ticket back into the family. My mother sighed like I was being difficult. Do not be dramatic, Lynn. Family helps family. I told her I needed time to think. I hung up without saying goodbye. Samantha saw my face and knew something was wrong. I sat down at the kitchen table and told her everything, the full story. The years of unpaid labor, the rejection when I asked for help with college, the bus ride to Columbus, the struggle, the silence. I had never laid it all out like that before, and by the time I finished, Samantha had tears in her eyes. She held my hand and said something simple but powerful. Whatever you decide, I support you. But you owe them nothing. I spent 3 days thinking. I barely slept. Memories kept flooding back images I had buried for years. Waking up at 5 in the morning to open the cafe. Missing prom because someone called in sick. The look on my father's face when he told me I was good with my hands. The silence from my mother as she stared at the floor. The cold voice on the phone telling me not to come home. I also thought about everything that had happened since. The friends I made, the career I built, the life I created from nothing. Not once in all those years had my parents asked how I was doing. They never congratulated me on graduation. They never acknowledged my success. And now they wanted $135,000. On Sunday evening, I called back. My father answered. His voice was exactly as I remembered, gruff and impatient. He did not bother with pleasantries. So are you going to help your sister or not? We need an answer. I took a deep breath. I had practiced this conversation in my head 100 times, but now that the moment was here, my heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. Dad, I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. Do you remember what you told me when I asked for help with college? You said I had a job at the cafe. You said family comes first. You said I should stay and work. He scoffed. That was different. You were young. You did not need college. I continued. You also said that working at the cafe was my rent for living under your roof, that I was not owed anything, that the food I ate and the bed I slept in were payment enough for 6 years of labor. He started to interrupt, but I did not let him. So here is my answer. I have built my own life. I worked 3 jobs while putting myself through school. I earned my degree. I built my career. I did not ask you for a single dollar. And now you want $135,000 for a wedding for the daughter you always favored. The one who never worked a day in her life. The one who got everything I was denied. There was silence on the other end. My answer is the same answer you gave me 14 years ago. Family comes first, and you made it very clear back then that I was not part of this family. I will not be at the wedding. I will not be sending money. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, but there was something else, too. A weight lifting off my shoulders, a door finally closing, a chapter finally ending. The aftermath came quickly. My mother sent a long email filled with guilt and manipulation. She said I was breaking her heart, that I was being selfish, that Megan cried every day because of my decision. Megan sent me a text message saying she had always wanted a relationship with me, that this was my chance to prove I cared about family. I read both messages carefully. I noticed something important. Not a single apology. Not one acknowledgement of what they had done to me. Only demands and emotional manipulation. My father sent nothing. That was typical of him. Word spread through the extended family. Some relatives called to shame me. How could you abandon your sister? Do you have no heart? But others surprised me. My Uncle Robert, my father's younger brother, called late one night. He told me he had always seen how my parents treated me differently. He said I did the right thing. He said he was proud of me. I realized I was not the only one who had noticed the favoritism all those years. The first few weeks after that phone call were difficult. I struggled with guilt, even though I knew my decision was right. Samantha suggested I try therapy, and I agreed. My therapist helped me understand that I was not responsible for my parents' choices. I did not cause their favoritism. I could not fix their blindness. All I could do was protect myself and build a life that honored my own worth. I started journaling, writing down memories I had suppressed for years. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible in my own home. Processing that pain was not easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to grieve the childhood I never had. But I also began to appreciate what I had built. A career that challenged me and rewarded my effort. A relationship with a woman who loved me for who I was. Friendships that were deeper and more meaningful than anything I had known growing up. Derek came to visit one weekend, and we stayed up late talking about the old days. He reminded me of the scared kid who showed up in Columbus with a shoebox full of dollar bills and a dream. "Look at you now," he said. "You made it." I visited Harold's grave on the anniversary of his death. I stood there in the quiet cemetery and thanked him for those words that saved my life. The world does not owe you anything, but you do not owe the world your surrender either. 6 months after that phone call, Samantha and I got engaged. We had a small ceremony in a botanical garden with only 30 guests. Uncle Robert came. Derek was my best man. Samantha's family embraced me like I had always been one of their own. I looked around at the people gathered there and I realized something profound. This was my real family. Not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. The one that chose me back. I do not hate my parents. I do not hate Megan. I have simply accepted that they are who they are. Maybe one day there will be reconciliation. Maybe they will come to me with genuine acknowledgement, with real apologies, with a willingness to see me as something more than what they needed me to be. But until that day comes, if it ever does, I am at peace. On my wedding day, Samantha and I sat on the porch of our new home watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. She turned to me and asked a question. "Do you ever regret leaving the cafe?" I thought about it for a moment. Then I smiled. That cafe taught me how to work, but leaving taught me how to live. Sometimes the hardest doors to close are the ones that were never really open for you in the first place. But when you finally walk away, you realize there is a whole world waiting on the other side. And that world, the one you build with your own hands, your own choices, your own heart, that is the one worth living in. If my story touched something in you today, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? Have you ever been treated unfairly by the people who were supposed to love you most? Leave a comment below and share your experience. And if this story gave you something to think about, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for being here with me today. I hope you find the courage to build the life you deserve no matter who tries to hold you back. Take care of yourselves, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it.